This is the Startup Journeys panel, learning how you guys did it, essentially. You guys are some renowned entrepreneurs with focus on African markets, and I'm excited to hear what you guys are working on and get some insights. So very briefly, my name is Lundie. I run community relations for Mest Africa, which is a seed fund and incubator and training program on the continent. So between Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, have a portfolio of 50 companies. So I work with a lot of the early stage entrepreneurs on the continent, and you guys, I think, are a little bit later stage. So again, really excited to have you. Quickly, if we can maybe I'll establish an order and say it'll go Trent, Bryan, Ugochi, Arjun, if that works, and we'll just kind of loop around. For introductions, tell us who you are, what you do, what your company does, and maybe which African markets you're focused on or you operate in. Please, starting with Trent.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for that. My name is Trent. I am the founder and CEO of Exclucity. We unfortunately don't focus on African markets. So just let me be upfront with that. But we are probably the leading sneaker boutique in Canada. We have a partnership with Nike, Adidas, Timberland, all the hype brands out there. I started my company out the trunk of my car selling long tees and do-rags. I don't know how popular those were in Africa 15, 16 years ago, but it was huge in North America. So I started that buying clothes in New York, selling out the trunk of my car to kids in high schools. I moved from that to having my first store in the basement of a tattoo parlor, and then brick and mortar. And we went on to having 10 stores across Canada. And we are now a national brand.
Fantastic. Okay, well, you're not focused on Africa yet, I think would be the caveat for that.
So yeah, sure.
Stay
exactly.
tuned. Great. Okay, thanks so much. Bryan, I think you were next. A little intro, please.
Yeah, sure. I hope everybody can hear me well.
Yeah, looking good, hopefully.
Okay. So I'm Bryan Uyanwune. I'm co-founder at Korapay Technologies. So what we do is it's a payment infrastructure offering fintech as a service. So like we make it easy for businesses, fintechs, banks, institutions to, get on our platform and offer payment solutions and launch their own digital payment, solutions, whether it's white labeled or powered by Korapay, to their customers without wasting time on, building the technology themselves or going through all the regulatory requirements themselves, right? So in short words, like an AWS for payments in Africa, right? Kind of like label for payment, so people can come build on top of us. We are headquartered in Toronto, Canada, but major operations are in Lagos, Nigeria. And that's where we kind of...
So I'm Ugochi Owo. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Flindel. What we do is we automate the commerce return space, and we make returning anything super, super easy. So instead of you having to really plan your life around a return, you can just drop off any return, whether it's from a mortar store, like a Walmart or Target, or from an online store in the lobby of your apartment building, your condo building, or your office building, and get your refund within a 24-hour time frame.
You're up, please.
Cool. So yeah, I am the CTO and co-founder of Kandua, which is a marketplace for home services in South Africa, and the biggest one, I think. So for carpenters, plumbers, builders, painters, electricians, all these types of different trades, we basically are building an API from this very semi-formal environment into so that everyone, whether it's customers or adjacent industry, can tap into this industry in a functional, technology-enabled way. And I realized I need to get a cool cap at some point. So
yeah, some branding would do you well.
Yeah,
okay, perfect. At least we got through that. So I have a couple of questions that are geared toward each of you and your backgrounds, so that you guys can kind of bring your specialties into the mix. If anyone wants to jump in or respond or start a dialogue there, feel free. But there will be a couple generic questions at the end if we can get through this as well. So starting off with you, Trent, you have reportedly bootstrapped, and you give a little bit of a background around how you started, but reportedly have bootstrapped your way essentially to building Exclucity into a multi-million-dollar company, sneaker empire, so to speak. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience starting up essentially without any external funding? And then also your opinion of when entrepreneurs should look toward external funding, or at what point does fundraising become the next step or absolutely necessary?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes my company a little bit different than the other people that are on the panel, where I'm not necessarily rooted in tech. I am retail and brick and mortar. And like you said, I did bootstrap my way, but I used technology. I used the internet to popularize my brand, and that, because the internet and social media is free, I didn't need to have the financing for marketing and have a big promotional team. I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you guys do, but like I started first on MSN Messenger. I started just taking people's emails, sending them pictures on MSN Messenger. Then I went to MySpace. I was one of the first people on Facebook to have pages. I opened my first Facebook account and they're like, well, no, you can't have a business on Facebook. And they brought me over to Pages. And then, Instagram, and here we are. We're now like, companies have social media, departments and heads and influencers, and it's a whole world. So I was lucky to jump on that quickly. And again, also to having a big partner like Nike. You can't have a sneaker boutique be successful without having partnerships. So in that way, I was fortunate to not have to go to funding quickly. But also too, I am a firm believer in, using every single means that are at your disposal before going to funding. And I'm also a fan of having funding come to you so that you're in control of the negotiations. So my advice would be to push yourself and think that funding isn't coming. And then once people start coming to you, then now you have a bidding war, and you're not giving up as much equity as you would have if you went to them.
Right, absolutely. I think that's usually the common kind of theme of advice is go as long as you can without, essentially having to give up a piece of what you're building. Does anyone have anything to add there before I want to kind of move to Bryan in the same kind of vein of fundraising or alternative streams of fundraising? I know that Korapay went through Techstars, which is an extremely renowned, obviously and reputable kind of accelerator program in Toronto, I think in 2019 I read. So accelerator programs have also been growing in popularity, especially on the continent, as a means of support and sometimes leading to follow-on financial support. And you hear both arguments. Some people say they're a total waste of time and that you should keep your head down and just build. And then other people think that they're absolutely invaluable and give support that you wouldn't be able to access elsewhere. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience there and your kind of thoughts on that type of support?
Yeah, for sure. So especially for companies or founders in the African landscape, I would say accelerators are very important, right? For us, for Korapay, it was not just company changing, but even individually life changing, right? That's literally why we headquartered in Toronto, Canada, right? We went to the Techstars program, and we saw the value in headquartering in Canada or in Toronto, because that gives you access to businesses, partnerships, mentors. A lot of people in the North American landscape don't really understand the African landscape. They know there's a sea of opportunity. They know that, it's the next frontier, but they don't understand it, right? So if you're coming to them saying you have this African startup and everything, some people might understand who have dealt with the African landscape, but for those that don't, sometimes it's better to have sort of an entity in North America where they feel comfortable. It's like, okay, this makes sense now, right? But even if you don't have the chance to do that, then an accelerator was also like a really good option, right? Because now because the accelerators go through because it's world renowned, they're more comfortable, investing in your company, partnering with your company, doing business with your company, because they have a point where they can relate to, right? Now, in terms of actually going through the accelerator, it's a whole different world, right? I mean, as founders already, you're busy, like you're stacked, like insane, but with an accelerator, this has been double that, right? They give you almost 2 years of growth and jam pack it into 3 months, right? And I would say, for me, it was the best experience I've ever had in my life, right? I learned so much that I didn't know. It helped the business so much that it just opened up a door of possibilities that we never even thought we could have, right? And then in terms of fundraising, like, these accelerator programs are geared towards that. They're geared towards helping you, right? So don't go into it thinking, oh man, these people just want to, get a taste of my company or get equity out of my company or all this. No. They're actually geared to helping you, right? The perks they give you, the mentors they give you access to, the angel investors, the VC networks, everything they give you is for your own benefit, right? And it opens a whole huge door of possibilities for you. So I would say, do not, if you have the opportunity, or if you are thinking about going to an accelerator, go into it for the right reason. Don't go into it thinking, okay, why am I going to do this? Is this even worth my time? Yes, it is, because these people have trained or have worked with the big companies in the world, right? Airbnb went through IC, Cinchi was part of Techstars, right? And these are huge companies now. And so they have more experience than you would ever have building a company. And so all they're doing is they've now created a playbook, which once you plug into, helps you and your business exponentially, right? Yes, it's going to be a lot more hard work, but trust me, the rewards are insanely amazing, right? So from my own humble opinion, I think accelerators are really some of the best things that founders and entrepreneurs can tap into, especially in the early stages building their company, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a sense of legitimacy that comes alongside them, and network at that stage, I think is invaluable. So Arjun, then moving over to you, I know that Kandua was chosen to represent South Africa at the Seed Stars competition. I'm not sure which year, but again, Seed Stars is really up there with like the most reputable programs. Seed Stars, TechCrunch, and I was going to say TechCrunch, Techstars, and YC are kind of like the top of the top. So same to you. I'm assuming that was a very invaluable experience, but what do African startups need more of? I think you're also the only founder who's based on the continent on the panel. So what would your advice be to those who are maybe not able to access the top of the top yet, but want that same type of support through your experience?
So first of all, those kind of programs are really useful. First, in and of themselves, because obviously, you get connected to people, both your peers, which is also if you're building in the developing context, less easy than if you're headquartered in Silicon Valley or whatever, because the density of people to learn from is lower, and that's a really important predictor of success. So firstly, it's useful for that. Then of course the programs, as Bryan, you were saying, do draw together a lot of great mentors and resources that help you, and that's also useful. But then for us, also another thing that was super useful is that on the back of winning that award, we were on TV. People who didn't quite know how to appraise other people in the ecosystem can use that as a barometer and say, hey, these guys are worth talking to. And then, as Trent was saying, you have investors following you more that, and the power dynamic shifts a little bit in your favor, which is really important if you're trying to raise on terms that work well for the sustainability of your business. So, so I would encourage people, especially early on, if you're like, before raising a big round of funding or that type of thing, especially then, it's great to try and be a part of these competitions. I think they're quite pervasive and you have access to them. Like I know Seed Stars is really impressive in the number of countries in Africa that it canvasses. So you should be able to enter that. And yeah, you should do that. And then I think the key thing to do, and so if you're not making it onto these things, yeah, I think the important thing is to try and be as much of a successful business as you have the means to, with whatever you have, which is tricky, but unfortunately that's what you've got to do, right? You've got to create something from nothing and create as much of a something as you can. So that would be my advice, and then that will both gear you towards becoming a potentially successful business or being picked up by one of these award things that can accelerate your journey and credibility. So that's what I would say.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. So hearing a lot of the common theme being access to people who know what they're doing. And so mentorship there being really invaluable, which brings me then to Ugochi with Flindel. I saw that your board is extremely impressive. Not only like big names in tech. So the founder of TechCrunch, Michael Arrington, and Andrew McDonald of Uber. So you've got a lot of the kind of higher end people on your side. What did it take to build a board like that? What would your advice be to entrepreneurs looking to do the same, to access those big names or the really valuable mentors, so to speak?
I would say not to be shy in reaching out to people, and to also find people that you generally like. With every single one of our board advisors, I have like a personal relationship with each one of them, in the sense that like they're able to help us with whatever it is that we need as a company, but then also having like friendly rapport is also really great. I don't think you look for names just for the sake of having names, but more so like what value, like what reasonable value can this person add to the business, whether it's in terms of like getting eyes on you or in terms of being able to open certain doors. And the way that we look at it is how to continue giving ourselves unfair advantages as a business. Yeah, so with all of our board advisors, I have a weird story with each person as to how like that happened. But long story short, it's just reaching out, like send the email, send the DM, do that. And you'd be surprised, like more people are willing to say yes and to hear you out if you're not weird than you'd imagine. So I just encourage people to just be proactive about reaching out to people and being open and not being shy. You never know if a door is closed or if it'll open unless you knock on it.
Exactly. Great advice. Okay, so don't be shy, always reach out. That kind of brings me to, and I know I'm trying to be sensitive to time as well because we're over. So two kind of questions that will be open-ended to anyone who really wants to speak on them. So often, I was just on another panel, the like investors' perspective, and so often investors are being asked what they're looking for in a founder or in a company that they're going to invest in. And so I kind of want to flip the script to you guys, and you touched on it a little bit, Ugochi, about what entrepreneurs should be looking for in their investors or their board members, for that matter, but people that you are inviting essentially to be part of your growth and your company, oftentimes when it comes to stakes in the company. Any kind of advice there or ideas on what you guys look for specifically when it comes to investors? It's a two-sided relationship. And so curious what your advice is there. Anyone can go.
I wanted to just piggyback off what Ugochi was saying, but also to highlight it, because I think people kind of take that advice lightly sometimes, where it's like, oh, like the person have a personal, like you want to have a personal relationship. When I look to somebody who I'm working with, like I look at it like as a don't chase the money. If you have somebody that's willing to give you, $10 million and, they're assholes and all they care about is the bottom line and, you know, you don't have a relationship where you could text them on a Saturday or a Sunday if you have to. I'd rather go with the person who's going to give me 5 or even 2. That's more invested on a personal side. For me, relationships are like key. And it's hard sometimes if you're, you know, in a place where like, you know, financing could really like make a huge difference. I always try to tell people, like, don't think about the short term. If you're in business just for money, then it's, you know, it's never going to work anyways. So really just think about like, how is it going to be working with this person 5 or 10 years down the road?
Definitely. People compare investor relationships to marriages oftentimes and say sometimes they're more successful or more or less successful and in divorce as well. So anything to add, Bryan, maybe or Arjun there? Or the last question I'm going to open up as well, which Trent, you're more than welcome to also comment on, is kind of in the next 5 years, what does the African startup space specifically look like? Or what, I mean, connecting it back to Africa, what does kind of the tech space hopefully look like on the continent if everything goes right? Which is, I guess, a little too specific to Africa, but anyone can comment on kind of thoughts for the next 5 years. I think we're in a really integral and exciting time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
so that's a really cool question. And one of the cool things about doing a startup in Africa is it's like you have a meta challenge as well, because you're trying to start your company, but you're also kind of trying to start the ecosystem. So that's quite rewarding, I find. And you know, there's always stories of like the PayPal mafia, or whatever, seeding Silicon Valley. Like that same opportunity is present in every ecosystem. And so I like to see it like that, instead of complaining about how there's no investors or no, established peers to learn from. But yeah, you find them. So it's exciting, I think. And I think it's probably happening faster because we have ecosystems to model ourselves around and stuff like that. But what I would love for it to become, if I'm optimistic and also still realistic enough, is I would love for it to become a space where we have enough VC capital from inside the countries, which would be really cool. Instead of having to always raise from abroad. If you want to raise big sums of money, that would be awesome. As well as, so I think success stories in a country and in an ecosystem are such a vital thing that catalyzes the acceleration of how it's seen from all stakeholders. And I think, that's basically the currency of, or the defining thing of growth. And I think as we see more and more of them, it'll become easier to hire people. People will know someone who was part of this company and then had a great exit, and it raises the profile in the ecosystem, which is really important. And in Johannesburg, which is in South Africa, even further behind than like Cape Town, we are in real need of those types of stories from all perspectives. And I think that will be exciting. I know that in Johannesburg, for example, as well, there are fewer people starting startups than there should be as well, because of the lack of that success story and the lack of belief that, this is something that is an incredible career path for those who are aligned to it. So I think that would be the case. And yeah, I think there'll be more mentor learning and sharing and more, that type of thing. And you can definitely see it happening. So yeah. That's what I'd
paying it forward, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. A lot of people compare the continent right now to Silicon Valley in the early 90s. They're like, it's about to explode. This is the time. More and more eyes will be turning toward Africa. I'm 100% confident of that. So any closing kind of words, Bryan, maybe your thoughts? I know Nigeria, biggest market, fintech specifically, huge industry. What do you think?
Yeah. Just to kind of echo what Arjun was saying, right? We're gonna see more influx of capital coming in, right? And it's a lot more succeeding news, right? For example, Paystack, one of the big fintechs in Nigeria, got acquired by Stripe, right? So that was huge news for the industry. That was huge for Nigeria. That's literally huge for the whole whole space, right? So I think that in the next 5 years, that will continue to be the trend, right? More and more acquisitions, more and more exits from the African tech ecosystem. I mean, Africa is the next, my co-founder always says, blue ocean, right? So everybody, like you said, eyes are gonna now be on Africa. We just had a successful acquisition, so now it's like everybody now can see like, hey, your dreams can come true, right? You can actually have a dream, and actually you're not limited by not just your boundaries and what you're surrounded by, but you can actually make it happen, right? So I think within the next few years, we're going to see a huge hockey stick growth in terms of entrepreneurs, in terms of successful companies coming out of Africa, especially in the Lagos, Nigeria scene, because that's like the hub, I think.
Definitely. And fintech, and I was going to say Ugochi also for logistics. I hear all the time that people all over Africa are making things, but you can't sell what you can't move. So if you crack the logistics scene, I think you're in a really, really good and exciting space. I think that's a really positive note to end on. If you guys any parting words, otherwise, thanks so much. I got a thumbs up. All good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, thanks guys. Have a good rest of your day. See you around. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.